Everyone present here. May I request Ananya Sarkar to present her presentation.
Thank you
Over to
very
you,
much,
ma'am.
ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay, I'll just like to share my screen.
Dear participants, you will have only 5 minutes to explain the concepts. Thank you.
I hope my screen is visible. A very good
Yes,
afternoon.
ma'am, it is visible.
Okay. A very good afternoon to one and all present in the meeting. I am Ananya Sarkar, PhD research scholar of Amity School of Languages, Amity University, Chhattisgarh, and the topic of my today's presentation is limited but liberated representation of cultural liminality in Mamang Dai's The Black Hill. Now, belonging to Pasighat, East Siong district of Arunachal Pradesh, author Mamang Dai memorably captures the marginalized essence of the routinized and ritualistic cultural practices of the hidden and silent legends of a land. Dai has been awarded the prestigious Padma Shri and the Sahitya Academy Award for her epistemic historiography and ethnographic crafting of her novel The Black Hill in 2017. Now, in Arunachal Pradesh, we all know that there is a special contribution and a special highlight in the in the part of the oral narratives. So, in one of her interviews, author Mamang Dai says that I am influenced by oral narratives. Knowing the stories gives me a sense of identity. Oral narratives are generally perceived as a simple recounting of tales for younger generation, but its significance lies in the symbols and about the sanctity and that is what makes the Adis humans. Now, since my topic is on cultural liminality, I would first like to explain the concept liminality. Now, the term liminality is derived from the Latin word limen, which means threshold, which is first stressed in French ethnographer Arnold van Genep's book Les Rites du Passage in 1909. He pointed out, Van Gennep pointed out the activities of an individual's life crisis categorized as the rites of passage, which is further subcategorized into three phases: rites of separation, transition, and incorporation. Another professor, Arpad Zakulkai, finds liminality, which is equivalent to Greek peros. So, liminality in the sense of removing the limit. There are some more critics like Victor Turner, who introduces the concept of liminoid, which is an independent domain of creativity. He also finds the neutral liminal period exactly at a time when the center and when the borders between the center and periphery is getting erased. There is one more critic beyond Thomason who elucidates liminality as the condensed liminal moment, mixing unsettling situation on one hand and the unlimited freedom on the other. The time being very less, I will just speak out in a very minute time. Now, there are some more critics like Jasper Balduk, who says that liminality is this neutral territory which again erase all boundaries between center periphery. Homi K. Bhava defines beyond as a new horizon where space and time cross to produce complex figures of difference and identity, and boundary as the mark where something begins its presencing. Now, the novel Black Heel, which is written in 2014, it captures the story of the unstable indigenous tribes placed in the fringes of the borderland between Tibet and India. The novel is inscribed based on three particular events, that is, the East India Company's construction of roads and railways in Assam, societies of foreign missions Paris sending French priests to spread Christianity throughout the world, and China never wanted European Catholicism to spread in their nation. So the only route left was to go to Tibet with the help of India or the Eastern Himalayas. So now the question comes why I have chosen cultural liminality for this novel. Now, Dai herself has, in her author's note, she has mentioned about this particular book where she writes, I thought I had the middle, beginning, and end, but most of it was in between, a striving for kinship with the past, if only in passing in between the pages of the book. Also, just in the prologue, when the novel is starting, Dai mentions about an interstitial passage which says, a closed book is opening. Someone is speaking to me from the past, and the words are as clear and as day, and it is the story of a priest, a man, and a woman. So, as we know, the concept of interstitial passage, it is when the past and the present is getting mixed up, or it is getting envisaging in a boundary or a border, and that is the cultural hybrid zone, which is used as the liminal space or as the interstitial passage. So the same thing is happening over here. Now, I would like to come to one of the central characters, the French priest, whose name is Nicolas Michel Creek, whose liminality. Now, Nicolas Michel Creek is coming from Paris to India. So we can see that he's crossing from one stage to another, or he's in a journey. So while he's in this journey, as we know that Von Gennep has mentioned that when we are in a constant shift from one place to another, it is a kind of liminality because it includes the entire process of separation, transition, and incorporation. Also, since he's coming to a new place, he's having a kind of a culture shock, or he's facing a kind of a mixed emotion. As Bjorn Thomason has mentioned, on one hand there is a kind of an anxiety, and on the other hand he's having a kind of freedom that he's about to make something for the god. Again, we see while he's performing this entire journey, when he's crossing the equators, he's performing a ritual. Now, ritual, we know, as Catherine Bell has said, it is a kind of a protest against the social orders, or it is also kind of an identity. And also on this, Van Gennep has said that when a person is undergoing ritual from uh, from the state of profane, he's achieving a sacred status. So this is what is happening uh, with French Father Creek, and that is how he is having a liminal uh, zone. Now I'll come to another important character who is the central character, Kazinsa. Now for Kazinsa, although there are numerous liminality that he is going through, but I would like to speak about the death ritual, which is making a very important sequence in his life. When Kazinsa was young, his father's death made him the clan chief or the Mishmi clan's chief. And that made him move from one place to another, or that made him pass through various journeys. And because he is the Mishmi chief, uh, he is involved in a fake murder of the French priest. And that priest's murder is actually causing his own death. And his death is giving rise to numerous other war and turmoil. And we know that Van Gennep has mentioned death and war as two important rituals happening. Death is the stage of the separation, which is leading to funeral, and war is something where we are leading to where we are in the stage of a transition. So that is how a major ritual happens with Kazinsa. Now I would like to talk of the neutral liminal zones. Now we know that planting of medicines is a popular culture in Arunachal Pradesh. We see the French priest and Augustine Bury, the two people from France who is coming to Arunachal Pradesh. They are doing the same thing. They are walking in the fields. They are planting medicines, and they are also providing ointments and simple remedies for the indigenous patients. There is one more character, the American Midland lady, who is handing over a book and a pencil to a bold lady Moi. Now, when this is happening, when she is handing over a book and a pencil, this is basically a neutral liminal zone. How it is symbolizing educational development, and at the same time, it is erasing all boundaries between the oppressor and the oppressed. When we come to the liminoid zones, now liminoid is a kind of, as I have already mentioned, it's a creative space or freedom that people do seek in their regular life. Liminality is something which is the structure or the routine we make in our life, but liminoid is the freedom. So we see Father Creek, he is seeking that liminoid space by playing flute. And we see that when the Britishers are after Kazinsa, Grimur, Kazinsa, and Oessa, his entire family are uh, enjoying that moment by drinking rice beer in bamboo leaves, sorry, bamboo glasses, the glass which is made of bamboo leaves. So this is again, they are through this they are performing a ritual which is their own culture. The bamboo leaves and the rice beer is one of the rituals that they perform, and at the same time they're also seeking the liminoid zone. Now, I would like to talk about the cultural traits and transformations. Now, I have already mentioned that as per Homike Bhava, the borderland marks the presence of unique culture. So, in the same way, we see the Abbot tribes, they are all tattooed. And the Kamans, or who are the Mishmis, they are always observed puffing long pipes. And that also dictates their status, the size of the pipes. So we see the character Gimor. She is having a kind of a cultural transformation or a metamorphosed state. Before marriage, she had a short hair beard above the earlobes. That is what the Abor is supposed to do. But after marriage, from Abor, she is becoming a Mishmi. So she is carrying her long hair. And also, she is following the fashions of the Kaman women by puffing of long pipes. We again see the character Kazinsa. He's accepting their oral world. Tell them we also had some things to say. We cannot read and write, so we tell stories. So that is how they are claiming, or they are possessing their own identity of oral traditions in the novel. Now, I am just about to wind up with the gender spaces that we see. Now, the Abor men, they are all assembling in a barrack style longhouse known as the Mosap. And what they are doing in that Mosap, they are discussing important administrative discussions related to the village. We see the same kind of structure, which is known as the Raseng, the girls' dormitory building, where the girls are assembling. Now, the character Gimor, we can see the character Gimor, she's delivering meat and rice beer to the Mossa, where the men are discussing about administrative decisions, but she's there to enter that public space. She can only deliver rice beer and meat. But and when we come to the work spaces of women's work space or their fixed territory is only between the kitchen and the and working in the fields. But again, this is in the novel that I'm quoting from. But when we come to the workspace of men, they are constantly moving from one place to another. They're looking after their territory. They are taking important decisions related to trade. They're planting aconite. So that is how the workspace is different for men and women. And it is also indicating that women have an inferior status compared to men. Now I would like to the conclusion. I would like to talk about the conclusion. Now we can see that there is a big spatial gap between the center and the periphery that has compelled the natives or the indigenous tribes to accept alienation and to adopt an eco-spiritualistic way of life. These tribes, they are bonding with the nature, considering it as their guardian, and have created folk tales related to it, which has by this they are making their own identity. Also, this oral perspectives of their life are openly reflected in Guy's narration when Kazinsa is saying, we read the land is our book. So that is how on one hand they are claiming themselves as the autochthons of their land, and on the other hand we can see their eco-spiritualistic way of life. So with this I would like to end my presentation. Thank you very much. Ma'am, I hope I was audible. Excuse me, ma'am.
Presented well, a vivid picture of Garjinshaw and the tribal people's life, and everything was very clear. And the participants, if you are having any questions, you can raise questions.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Dear participants, do you have any queries? No?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
So shall we move on to the next person presentation? So may I now request Miss A. Bonapriya to present. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Are you here, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. I'm here, ma'am.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Okay.
Just a second, ma'am. Ma'am,
Ma'am,
can
are
I?
you ready to present?
I'm not able to open my screen, ma'am. Can I present it in another 5 minutes after the next person, ma'am?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
May I now request Ria Rajit to present? Are you here, ma'am?
Hello. Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Can you, ma'am?
Yes. Yes, I'll present it. So, good afternoon. I'm Riya Rajat, and I'm a research scholar from Palakkad, Kerala. And I would just like to share my screen. Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. It is visible. You can
Okay.
proceed.
Thank you. Okay. So the title of my paper is From Colonization to Action, a study of Eastern Kayas, a Naga village remembered. So here on the screen, you would be able to see on the left-hand side, that is the author, Eastern Kaya. And this is the book, A Naga Village Remembered, which is one of the notable works written by Eastern Kaya. So Eastern Kair was actually, she was born to an Angami Naga family in Kohima district of Nagaland. So she is a powerful voice from the state of Nagaland, and she acts as a representative of the Naga people. And most of her works, it deals with the realities and experiences of the Naga community to which she also belongs. And also she felt that the realities and experiences and also the conflicts that the Naga tribes faced, they had to found or they had to form an expression through the written literature. So that is why she chose to write depicting the realities of the Naga tribe. And this work, A Naga Village Remembered, was written in 2003, and it is the first novel which was written by a Naga writer in English. And this novel, it deals with various forms of resistance, which was adopted by the Angami Nagas. So Angami Nagas are actually a tribal community who belong to the state of Nagaland. So this novel actually it deals with the kind of resistance which was adopted by the Angami Nagas of the Konoma village against the British rule. So here, also in this novel, we could see the Angami Naga culture, their beliefs, the things that they considered to be taboo, then oral narratives, the importance of oral narratives in among the Angami Naga tribe. All these also form an important part of this novel, A Naga Village Remembered. And moreover, most importantly, this novel deals with the British rule, how it began to spread its roots in this area, in this region of Nagaland, especially in the village of Konoma, and how it resulted in the spread of English language, English education, then English religion, etc. So, as a result of all this, slowly the culture of Angami Nagas or the tribes, they slowly started to deplete or it showed a disappearance of their culture. And as a result, they decided to fight back against the British rule, British colonial rule. So, here in this work, we can also see that. Yeah. So in this work, we could also see the kind of resistance which is taken up by the Angami Nagas against the Britishers. So this forms the background of her work, that is the colonial expansion, which there are many issues like the spread of education, English education, and all those. And moreover, also these, when the British came to their lands, they began to cut down their forests. Then they began to levy taxes on these tribes, and also they forced them to work as bonded laborers. That is, they forced the natives or the tribes to work as bonded laborers. They weren't allowed or they weren't paid for that. So all these created tensions between the two groups, like between the natives and also between the settlers. And this resulted in many kind of wars. It resulted in various kinds of raids, battles, etc. So for this, actually, I have focused on one theorist, that is Frantz Fanon, and his theory of decolonization, as seen in the work The Wretched of the Earth. So the term decolonization actually means moving away from colonization, or taking or becoming free from the colonized people. So here again in this novel, that idea is depicted. So here, Frantz Fanon, he feels that for the colonized people, that is for the natives here, land is of prime importance, or it is considered to be very important for them. So here, land is associated with their identity. It is associated with their dignity. So everything that they do is associated with land and the love for the land. So actually, one of the characters, Levi, in the novel, he considers, or when he returns back to his land after many years, actually he had been in jail because he had conducted a raid against one of the British governments. So he was imprisoned for that. And later, when he returns after many years, he feels that he is very much bonded to his land, and he feels that it has a strange quality. That is, the land has a strange quality of making him or making any of the natives bonded to the land. And that is what he describes there in this, or that is what the author Eastern Kyle describes here in this novel. And also, so the love for the land is very important according to the natives, or for the natives. And it is this love for the land that makes the natives, especially the Angami Nagas, as brave warriors. And they are even ready to die fighting for their land or for their homeland. So that is the importance of land as seen here in this work. Moving on, Fanon also felt that both the idea of colonization and decolonization are associated with the idea of violence. So he feels that that is, the colonizer, they use violence against the colonized people. That is, the Britishers, they used violence against the natives. And but the colonized people, on realizing that they are being subjugated, they are being marginalized, when they realize it, they come up against the colonizer. That is, using the same violence, they fight back. So here, actually, what Fanon is trying to convey is that violence acts as a cleansing force here. Because here, using the same violence with which they had subjugated them, the natives fight back the colonizer. So that element is also seen here in this novel, when the Britishers, they incorporate many violent measures, they actually burn down many of the Angami Naga villages and all that. But the Nagas, the tribes, actually want to resist against that, and they decide to fight back. So whenever there is an attack by the British, they plan on having a counter attack, and using that same violence, they try to resist it. And moreover, they emerge victorious in many battles against the British rule also, and they outnumber the Britishers many a times also. So that element of love for war or violence is also seen in Angami warriors. And according to Fanon, violence plays an important role in colonization and decolonization processes. Okay. Then colonization, according to Fanon, he feels that, according to Frantz Fanon, colonization, he feels it creates differences. But on the other hand, he feels that decolonization unifies people. So whereas colonization creates differences, decolonization tends to unify the people. That's what he feels. So here, actually, the people of Konoma, that is the village Konoma, they that is, they join hands with many other villages, many other tribes, and to fight the British. So that actually is like a unifying force among the natives here, like using the same using that unity, or using that same unifying power, they are able to resist the Britishers. And many of the villages, there are many villages who come together, and involved in the fight against these people. So that is also, like, there are many villages including Kikruma, Kidima, Mima. So these are some of the names of villages along with Konoma who join hands in their fight against the British. So that is also one area, or one aspect which is described in this novel, of how decolonization unifies people. Okay. And so slowly, when the people, they began to realize that they were being colonized, they tried to react against it. They felt that the Britishers, what the Britishers were doing was wrong, and they conducted many raids against it, like against the colonial rule. And so the colonial people, that is the Britishers, were also not happy with it, and they also tried their various forms of resistance. They tried to negotiate first, but when it didn't work out, they carried out forms of violence. But still, these Angami Nagas, even though in the later half, like during the Battle of Konoma, which is actually an important part in this novel, the Battle of Konoma, which was fought between the British and the natives. In that battle, actually, in the end, you would realize that the natives are almost outnumbered, and they face many difficulties, but still they want to fight for their land. And even though they are outnumbered, they want to fight for their land, and they they gather the support of all the other different tribes and villages, and they try to fight back the British even in that last moment. So finally, but in the end, you realize that they are almost like outnumbered, and many consequences results, where the women and children of the natives are forced to leave the village and all that. And as a result of that, they finally finalize a peace treaty with the British, and that's how the Battle of Konoma, or the war between the two groups, that comes to an end. So here, in this part, I was just like to conclude with this by saying that Fanon actually believed that decolonization can happen only if a native is only if native comes out and uses action against, or uses force or violence against the colonizer. So here, it is evidently visible in this novel, because the native is not a passive victim of violence. He is not subjugated by the British. Even though he is in the beginning, he comes out against it, and he uses force and violence. So I would like to conclude by saying that decolonization can happen only if one is not a passive victim, and one comes out and acts accordingly. So that is the title of my paper also, that is how the natives, they move from, or how the village of Konoma moves from colonization to decolonization or action. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you please explain how the colonization made differences, and how the decolonization made the people unifies themselves?
Could you repeat that, ma'am? Sorry.
How colonization made the people differences, and
Okay.
how decolonization made the people unifies themselves.
Okay.
It's with
Yes.
reference to your selected work.
Okay. So here, colonization, actually, when the British came into the region of Konoma, they tried to create many differences. They tried to bring in this English education, and also they joined certain villages and certain tribal groups, and they tried to put them against, or they tried to make them react against the other village of Konoma and like especially the Angami Nagas, and they created tensions between them, like conflicts between them, and all those were the issues that they raised. But when it comes to like decolonization part, when they natives realized that the what the Britishers were doing were like mainly like subjugating them, they realized the importance, and they felt that they should unify, or they should stand together. And there is one instance when that is the village of Konoma, the people of the village of Konoma, they are marching forward for a battle or a raid against the British, and on their way they are joined by numerous villages. Like they just say they just join hands with the people of the village of Konoma in their fight against the British. So they just join them on their way, and finally when they reach the place where the battle is going to be held, actually they have many members of different tribes and villages with them, and that doubles the force, and thus they outnumber the British and they win over them. So that's how it like creates a difference and unifies. Decolonization unifies them.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you
Okay.
so much for your vivid explanation
Thank you
and
so much,
for
ma'am.
your clear points.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Participants, if you have any queries, you can ask your queries. If you have any queries, shall we move on to the next person then?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
May I now request Miss A. Bhanupriya, ma'am? Can you do now?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay. Ma'am, is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible. You
Okay.
can proceed.
Okay, ma'am. So my topic here is emergence and evolution of Puritanism in America. And by the way, I'm Banu Priya from the Department of English, Vistas, Chennai. I'm a PhD scholar as well as assistant professor from Vistas. Okay. My topic here is emergence and evolution of Puritanism in New England or America. The Puritans, a brief history. As the Puritans were unable to express their religious sentiments and they were tired of persecution, the Puritans immigrated to New England in the year 1620. They believed they were chosen by God to create a new order in America, and that is the main reason that they moved to a new land. They Massachusetts was a place where they soon settled as a Puritan commonwealth. Focusing on the Puritans in England, many individuals believed that the Church of England was too Catholic and they desired further separation. They wanted to be separate and far away. They wanted to deviate themselves away from Catholicism, and that is why Puritanism was formed. They viewed themselves as soldiers in a war fighting against Satan. Their main aim, and their only sole purpose was to purify Christianity. They believed that it could be reformed from within, and they were prosecuted. The main beliefs of the Puritans: human history is a progression towards fulfillment of God's design on earth. They believed that human beings were born in order to fulfill God's plan on earth. They believed that God's hand is present in every human event, be it good or bad. They believed that God rewards the good and punishes the bad. The struggle with sin was a daily mission for them. They totally wanted to avoid sin. So they were continuously struggling with sin. Every detail is significant and means something in God's plan. And they solely believe that hard work, responsibility, and thrift are very important when it comes to Puritanism. And being lethargic and lazy, they absolutely considered it as a sin. And how was the government during Puritanism was the Puritan Church. They proclaimed that the governing body was the state actually. Treason against God meant treason against the state, treason or treason against the whole state. So nobody was allowed or nobody were permitted to go against God. The Puritan church here they had an exclusive control over the lives of the people. New laws and new customs were brought upon due to these Puritans. The Puritan church held exclusive control over the lives of the people, and it may be no pope or the bishop or the king. They had the right to impose any law upon the soul of people. Success, they considered that success is the main thing that is given by God, even though man puts his whole effort into for an outcome. They believe that success is favored by God only. And the Bible, which plays a very important part, um, here only there were certain people called as the elect. They looked for signs to show themselves as they were the selected people of God, and there was also a heavy emphasis on the word of God, that is the Bible. Sermons were given at regular intervals, and it was considered as a regular medium of communication from the bishop or the priest to the people. Sermons accompanied every public event, be it whatever the event. Every small, at least a small sermon was given. Two or three sermons on Sundays. The pure word of God and transformation by the Holy Spirit were continuously insisted on the people. And coming on to a greatest tragedy that happened actually during the evolution of Puritanism in America in the year 1692, and that is the Salem witch trials. The Salem witch trials had a very great impact on Puritanism. Uh, The Salem witch trials, it was a series of hearings and prosecutions of people who were particularly accused of witchcraft in the colonial Massachusetts colony between 1692 and May 1693. More than 200 people were accused, and around 14 women and 5 men were killed, saying that they practiced witchcraft. And moving on to the suspicion and hysteria, trials were held, and women were actually stripped to check for the mark of the devil. They considered it so. The church members claimed to have seen witches' spirit performing witchcrafts, and totally the people, even though Puritanism wanted to show themselves, they are away from Catholicism. They insisted rules and laws on people, so which made all the people in and around America to feel unsafe. Nobody was safe there. And coming on to the spectral evidence, the accused in the Salem witch trials were prosecuted on spectral evidence. They believed that the devil had the power to create images or impressions of figures in order to afflict people and to lead them astray. English courts refused to prosecute capital offences on the basis of spectral evidence only. That was not in the case of New England. Particularly during the witch trials, the accused girls claimed that various people of Salem had appeared to them to lead them into witchcraft and to cast spells upon them. Furthermore, they also claimed to see specters, a black cat or a wolf or a bird, even in the courtroom. The magistrates accepted such evidence as, admissible or for judgment and as well as for sentencing. And then coming on to the Puritan writing style, how is the writing style of the Puritans? They valued reason, logic, clarity, and order in writing more than elaborate words, which resulted, um, on the whole, we can say that Puritan writings also they focused on law and morally and mainly on religion, which made their writings a little bit dull and boring. The Puritan influence was solely into all the literature, books, and the Bible played a very important and major role when it came to literature, and many other things which the writers of that age started focusing was mainly on imagery. That's it, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Actually, what are the Puritan activities that influenced the American writers?
They wanted to follow the Bible in particular, ma'am. They wanted to avoid sin actually, so they were very much focused on being pure, not to deviate from God. So these were the main, the writers also, apart from the Bible, many would read the Bible still, but apart from the Bible, they also incorporated the messages and values in the Bible through their literary elements to make it more simpler and easier for the people to understand. So they took all their ideas from mainly from the Bible only, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Participants, dear participants, if you have any queries, you can ask. We have no questions. Shall we move on to the next person? Okay. May I now request SK Banasik to take over this session?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sheikh Benazir, Assistant Professor of English, Bozora College from West Bengal. And I will be sharing my screen. So the title of my paper is A Study of the Marginalization of Women Characters in Detective Fiction with reference to Laurie R. King's The Mary Russell series. So Laurie R. King was born in 1952 in Oakland, California. She is an American author best known for her detective fictions. The Mary Russell series consists of a series of historical mysteries which comprises of a considerable number of novels and short stories written over a period of nearly 2 decades in the first-person narrative. Her crime and detective fiction series can be read as stand-alone novels too. This Mary Russell series features the young Mary Russell in her early, she was 15 when she is introduced, and along with her, the other character that is introduced in this Mary Russell series is that of retired Sherlock Holmes, and the time period is 1915. Mary Russell, or she is also known as Mary Judith Russell, is portrayed as an aspiring female detective and a student of theology at the Oxford University. She is first introduced in King's, the novel titled The
Ma'am,
Bee.
sorry for the interruption, ma'am. Ma'am,
Yes,
can you share a slideshow, ma'am? Because the fonts are not clear to read. It's not readable. So can you slideshow it?
is it visible now?
Ah, yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Sorry
Okay,
for the interruption.
okay. So, yeah, Mary Russell or Mary Judith Russell is portrayed as an aspiring female detective and a student of theology at the Oxford University. She is first introduced in King's The Beekeeper's Apprentice, which was published in 1994, as a young independent girl of 15. The novel begins with Mary Russell running into a middle aged man who is soon discovered to be none other than Sherlock Holmes, the famous and celebrated detective in Arthur Conan Doyle's novel, who was already established by that time. And Holmes was also impressed with the intelligence and keen sense of observation of Russell, as she was able to tell the difference between the bees from a difference in spot on their wings, difference in color in the spot on their wings. And Russell is also is shown to provide accommodation to her aunt, manage her farm efficiently, and she is also later depicted as a brave and independent woman who takes up cases and tries to solve them to the best of her ability. Sherlock Holmes, as introduced in The Beekeeper's Apprentice, he is the same Sherlock Holmes who has already featured as the hero, as the detective hero in Arthur Conan Doyle's mystery series. The Sherlock Holmes introduced by Mary Russell is a middle-aged man, a retired detective who is living in the South Downs, where he cultures bees in his garden and is actually carrying out an experiment on the bees. And Russell, in no time, by the power of her intelligence, and she impresses Sherlock Holmes, and they eventually become friends. And also, they later on get married. So, the famous and the celebrated detective Sherlock Holmes becomes a companion detective to Mary Russell, and they have a conjugal life apart from the professional ties, as is portrayed by Laurie R. King in her series. And Holmes becomes the idiosyncratic mentor of Russell. The first mystery that they solve together in The Beekeeper's Apprentice is that of Mrs. Barker, who suspected her husband. And Russell had embarked upon solving this mystery, but it was only with the interference of Holmes that the mystery was actually solved. This, and there is also another case in which there is kidnapping of a character called Jessica Simpson, who is the American senator's daughter. And in this incident also, even though Russell tries her best to solve the case, but it was not, she couldn't solve it independently because she had to take the help of Holmes. So Sherlock Holmes remained a very strong influence all throughout the novel, both as a mentor and as a husband. Holmes mainly solves the cases not by only providing some thoughtful insights, but also provides with important clues and even appears in person in various scenarios. Russell thus time and again comes across as a mere apprentice, merely assisting her husband. She is never shown to independently solve the cases. Sherlock Holmes remains the main functioning brain behind solving the mysteries, and he takes the forefront eventually. And this saga continues all throughout this series. Thus, the aura and grandeur of Sherlock Holmes overshadows Russell, and she is sidelined and can be said to be presented as a marginalized character in the detective fiction to a large extent. Mary Russell becomes the colleague, confidant, and the wife, but remains the apprentice to Sherlock Holmes. A psychoanalytical interpretation of this phenomena can be that since Sherlock Holmes was the husband, Russell dared not overpower or overshadow him at any cost, but decided to remain as the deputy at work and thus the apprentice. And this can be because of the deep seated societal norms, and she had to abide by the rules where the husband is the superior one in the relationship dynamics that follows. And as Zoria Markovic states, marriage is a dynamic interrelationship of husbands and wives' unconscious motives who repeat the pattern of family relationship they knew in their childhood. And even according to Freud, the choice of a marital partner as well as relationships are merely repetitions of a relationship with parents' patterns from childhood. Also, given that Mary Russell was a woman and a detective, the profession that is considered to be unsuitable for the women folk, she also subconsciously lacked the full confidence to stand on her own, given the deeply inculcated and perpetuated patriarchal norms of the society. And thus, it can be said that, in accordance with Laurie R. King, I quote, "I did not write Sherlock Holmes stories, I wrote Mary Russell stories. But eventually, it is Sherlock Holmes whose aura overshadows Mary Russell." And these novel also features Dr. Watson and Mrs. Hudson. These two were the famous characters from the Conan Doyle series, which featured Sherlock Holmes as well. So this, however, may be King's tactics or a marketing strategy to make her work a success. But these characters were already tremendously popular in the detective fiction of Conan Doyle, which was already there. Thus, though Laurie R. King brings a female protagonist Mary Russell introduces her as a female detective, but she fails to provide the detective Russell with a complete individualistic identity of her own. In fact, she is presented as she comes across as a marginalized character. She couldn't break free from the norms and societal cultures which condemn women from certain jobs. Being a professional detective is one such. Though Russell has been portrayed as an intelligent, logical, brave, unconventional girl who even excels at fighting with an unfailing aim and takes up disguises in men's clothes, one who is independent minded and yet emotional, but in spite of all these qualities attributed to her, she is put under the safe wings of Sherlock Holmes. This also may be a technique of King to make her work a success, or maybe she was not sure of portraying the female detective solving cases all by her own, but definitely this whole endeavor deserves a special mention.
Ma'am, are you there? Excuse me, ma'am. Can you hear me? Dear participants, please wait for 5 minutes. Ma'am, what happened?
Yes, there was some connection problem. I completed my presentation, right?
Yes, ma'am, yes. Okay, ma'am. How can you compare this Russell character with the nowadays characters, women characters? How the
Russell's
women characters they are marginalized and how they are overcoming their barriers. How you can
okay.
compare the character with the recent scenario women characters?
Yes, so this novel that I particularly picked is Laurie R. King's The Mary Russell series, where even after the protagonist name is Mary Russell, after whose name the title of the series continues, but a close reading shows that Sherlock Holmes gains the forefront, or eventually he is the one who overshadows Mary Russell. So if Mary Russell is marginalized, is presented as a marginalized character, a marginalized woman character in the detective fiction. So, as I said, it was in published in 1994, and it presents the scenario of 1915. So, of course, Mary Russell, as I towards the end, I was saying that only that even though Mary Russell was not established as an independent female professional female detective in this novel, but she continued her profession. She didn't leave her profession, and this is what paved way for the later writers to present their female protagonist as the main detective. For example, I can say that there is a writer, P.D. James. She had introduced a character called Cordelia Gray, who is portrayed as a young, independent female detective, and she, becomes the protagonist and she handles the cases independently. So later on, this marginalization of women characters in detective fiction decreased eventually, with more women writers taking up this genre, and they are also portraying, female detectives as the protagonist in their novels.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear participants.